La Traviata was an ideal opportunity for our company to address what I believe is one of the significant challenges facing opera today. Now, at the heart of every great opera is a very powerful story, one that can connect with everybody in attendance. However, as time moves on, and as some of our great operas move farther and farther into history, the ability of the modern audience to connect with the themes in some of these stories, or at least the content of the stories, diminishes. Now, I have a personal experience with this with La Traviata. The first time I saw it, I was 23 years old, and while I loved the opera, I had to go home and Google what tuberculosis was, because by the time I reached adulthood, the disease had largely been eradicated, and I just didn't know what it was. So I had no ability to know what Violetta was suffering from on the stage during the opera. This diminished my ability in the moment to connect to the story and appreciate the opera as much as I should have, because I had no idea the social stigma that existed around tuberculosis at the time. So seeking to tell the story in a way that could better connect with a modern audience, we decided to set the opera in a time and with a disease that means the same thing to us today as tuberculosis did in the late 19th century. In San Francisco, at the onset of the AIDS epidemic in the early 1980s. At the time of the production in January 2013, anyone over the age of 35 had lived through the national terror of the AIDS epidemic, had possibly known someone who had died of the disease, and definitely remembered many of the celebrities inflicted with the disease, making them much more able to connect with the pain and suffering taking place on the stage. Now, we displayed several photographic displays in the lobby of the theater prior to the performance, showing the timeline of the epidemic in our country, the famous people we lost, the diverse faces of the AIDS epidemic, and some data on the current state of the disease, with the goal of having audience members recall the time period before the production even started. Now, the result was powerful. People seeing the production for the first time were able to connect to the story immediately. People who had seen it before were struck by how much more it meant being connected to something they remembered. And some people complained that they didn't come to the opera to be made uncomfortable or unhappy, even for an opera as tragic as La Traviata. To me, that says they were moved in ways they hadn't been before by this opera, because they were able to connect to it in a much more meaningful and current way.